In the mid-1750s, a community was started when several large landowners established plantations and a few families formed a village known as Logtown at Summit Hall. Benjamin Gaither settled on property near the intersection of Diamond and Frederick Avenues before 1800 and started a blacksmith shop, store, and tavern to serve travelers and locals. His crossroads enterprise became known as Gaithersburg. The U.S. Postal Service began in 1851 with an office inside the Gaither store, which stood near the famous Forest Oak tree. The mailing address was adopted as the village name, Forest Oak, in the 19th century. The Forest Oak tree witnessed much change along Frederick Avenue, known as the Great Road West. The tree has seen such famous men as George Washington and Edward Braddock traveling between Georgetown and Frederick, Union and Confederate forces during the Civil War, and many settlers moving west. Frederick Avenue was first mapped as a Native American trail and then called the Georgetown-Fredericktown Road. Gaithersburg was considered the last outpost of civilization in Montgomery County in 1730. But by 1750, most of the large tracts had been taken and only smaller unclaimed pieces were left. The names of Lost Knife, Shady Grove, Deer Park, and Quince Orchard have survived. As wagons, horses, oxen, and people needed occasional repairs and respite, public houses, blacksmiths, and other tradesmen established locations along the road. The corner of Chestnut Street and Frederick Avenue has been a commercial site since 1815. This was the site of the tavern, inn, and blacksmith shop, providing food, lodging, and service to travelers along the Great Road. The town of Gaithersburg was formed from several tiny settlements, the oldest being Logtown at Summit Hall, which was established before 1770. It is home to the oldest structures in Gaithersburg. The original Summit Hall farmhouse has been renovated to its present-day form. Nearby stands the Summit Hall Smokehouse, believed to be the oldest complete building in Gaithersburg. Historically known as the Smokehouse, its notched logs and chinked mortar serve as a modern-day reminder of the early settlement of Logtown. For most of the war, Gaithersburg served as a transit point for a steady stream of Union forces and supplies. In July 1864, the last great Confederate offensive of the Civil War passed through Gaithersburg and Muddy Branch. Union and Confederate forces clashed on the outskirts of Gaithersburg and in Rockville. The main body of Early's corps camped at Summit Hall, a huge farm on the former site of Logtown that was owned by John DeSelum. While the officers chatted amiably with their host at dinner, the farm was ransacked and plundered by Confederate soldiers. Chickens and livestock were carried off, horses were commandeered, and DeSelum was given a promissory note and 2 barrels of corn. He was not left destitute, however, because his quick-thinking sister, Sarah DeSelum, had concealed some $3,000 in gold by sewing it into her underskirt. She knew Southern honor meant that she would not be subjected to an embarrassing personal search. The hidden gold was not found. For Montgomery County, the Northern victory meant preservation of the Union and freedom for several thousand slaves. The county continued to be a sleepy Southern agricultural community well into the 20th century. When Gaithersburg was a village of only 3 or 4 houses, it owed its existence to the road between the District of Columbia and the lands being opened beyond the Alleghenies. It was dependent on the road for travelers' business and to ship its profitable tobacco crop to market. The town grew as transportation improved, and the region was always eager for new and better ways to travel and ship goods. They enlisted the support of 2 of Montgomery County's leading citizens, Francis Clopper of Gaithersburg and General William Gaither, a member of the Maryland Senate. In early 1853, an application was made to the Maryland legislature for a charter. General Gaither was an influential advocate, and the bill quickly passed the Senate. The line finally chosen conforms closely to that which the B&O follows today through Montgomery County. Construction of the railroad brought a surge of new people to Gaithersburg and other communities along the projected line. Gaithersburg grew rapidly in size. The town center shifted from the Frederick Road to Diamond Avenue near the rail station. A large hotel was erected near the depot, as was a bakery, a livery stable, and several establishments. Schools as well as businesses were drawn to locations convenient to the railroad. The availability of rapid, easy, frequent transport brought profound images and lifestyles and outlook. As early as 1886, the Washington Star noted increasing numbers of people using the trains to commute from the countryside to jobs in Washington. Trains were frequent. In 1891, there were more than a dozen each way daily between Gaithersburg and Washington. But there were many accidents and delays, too. Alarm over the number of train accidents is expressed repeatedly in editorials and newspaper stories of the day. As far as Gaithersburg and other towns in the Mid-County region were concerned, the coming of the railroad was the most important development of the 19th and early 20th centuries. The railroad spurred the village to prepare for a bigger and better future, but it had a long way to go. Governor John Lee Carroll signed an act incorporating the town of Gaithersburg on April 5, 1878. The charter was far more than a formality. It was the start of Gaithersburg as a true community. The law was passed, and for the first 20 years of its government, Gaithersburg was a body corporate registered in the name of the Commissioners of Gaithersburg. The government consisted of a 5-member commission which had the power to conduct all local affairs. The primary business of the first government was roads and sidewalks. Intersections were piked with stone, and an oak plank sidewalk was built on the west side of Frederick Avenue. The second charter was granted by the General Assembly on April 9, 1898, and signed by the Maryland governor. It established a corporate body known as the Town of Gaithersburg, as the legal successor to the Commissioners of Gaithersburg. When the phenomenon of the Earth's wobble on its axis was first announced, the International Geodetic Association began a search for strategic locations for stations to carry out systematic observations to solve this scientific puzzle. The superintendent's report for 1898-99 shows that an agreement was reached by the members of the International Geodetic Association to establish 5 observatories near the 39th parallel. They were spaced as evenly as possible around the Northern Hemisphere, in the United States, Russia, Japan, and Italy. Observations began on October 18, 1899. The observatory was active until 1982, when the 83-year-old star tracking system was replaced by computerization, and the Zenith telescope was moved to storage.